Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with my friend, partner, known to many as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, birthday boy of the week, Wes Brown.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, it's my big 6-0. I know it's hard to believe. You know, when I look at myself, it's like, you're not a day over 58. So, so it's hard to believe it's going to be the big, push over to like my twilight years, evidently. I don't know. I told my wife earlier, it's like I turned 60 and it's over. Everything is over.
Well, you just answered my next question. It was like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling contemplative about where you are in this stage of life?
As our listeners probably know, as I just spent a week with my granddaughter, and it makes you contemplate. It's like, let's see, I'm turning 60. You're like just 3 weeks old. What milestones will I witness in her life? So it's just like, obviously life is a crapshoot anyway. We never know when our number's coming up, but no, I feel it's all good. My wife said 60 is the new 50. So I'll take it.
That's what everybody says though. Everything is functioning properly though.
Yeah. I feel pretty good, other than I'm overweight and I need to work out. So, but I got the gym membership and we're hopefully make a turn.
Nothing really hurts.
Let's see, my hip. I got a bad hip. I can't, my left leg, I can get that over my leg, like to put my socks on. My right leg, I got to like help it up. So I'm going to need some PT from somebody to like help strengthen them flexor muscles or whatever they're called. And then I don't know if I have a torn rotator cuff, but I have some shoulder issues. So that's pretty much it. My vision's the same. But you just approach life with those little things and move on.
I feel like you have a fair amount of gas left in the tank.
I think so. I truly believe that.
The one part that I think I'm learning at the second part of this whole journey thing is that if you have something that hurts you, injure yourself in some other way, and it alleviates the pain of the thing that kind of nags you all the time, like, twist your ankle or,
There you go.
That always helps. I jammed my wrist this weekend and my thumb that's been giving me fits. I think I have arthritis in it. Immediately stopped hurting.
Yeah. I can see that.
Anyway,
I'll keep that in mind. If my shoulders really bother me, I'll just like drop kick something really hard.
There you go.
Yeah. Then my pain in my shoulder will quit.
I've told that drop an anvil on your head, like in the Roadrunner.
Just like the Roadrunner.
That'll cure everything. Well, happy pre-birthday or whatever, the early birthday.
Thank you.
I don't know what you say when it's before your birthday. I'll call you on your birthday.
I know you will.
I'll even sing you happy birthday.
I think you've done that before.
Yeah, it's my thing. Jen, you got a birthday coming up?
In January. Happy birthday, Wes.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jen.
Yeah. Todd, I fully agree with your theory on the best way to cure an ailment is a different ailment.
It works.
Your mind only has so much room to focus on so many things at a time.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can always find out what we're up to via our social media on Instagram at Tenet Podcast and our Tenet Podcast Facebook page. And of course, be sure to check out our website, tenetpodcast.com. All right, let's talk some yummy art.
Love it.
Did you know that art is good for you, Wes Brown?
I kind of felt that way when I was in Scottsdale, Arizona this last week, looking at beautiful artwork. And if I can take a moment, I would like to give some shout outs to the Marshall Gallery of Fine Art. They have amazing collection of artists. And I talked to Cindy Karstens, and she does beautiful work. I was at the Bonner David Galleries, the J. Klein Gallery, the Xanadu Gallery. A big shout out to Maddie Macer, who said she's likes weird stuff. So I said, listen to our podcast. So, and then lastly, Paul Eubanks from the Paul Scott Gallery, who handles a lot of Russian art. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. So just some shout outs to all those people in Scottsdale. And that was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of beautiful art. So yes, after experiencing a couple of days of looking at in galleries, looking at art, I did feel a little better. So do you have some like fun fact about it?
I just know it's good for your eyeballs and your ear holes. So there you go.
Well, especially this podcast is good for your ear holes.
Well, everybody should listen.
That's
You
right.
should tell all your friends. Our guest this week is a phenomenal artist. She has a solo exhibit that opens on December 3rd entitled Confronting the Void, a solo exhibit of mixed media work by Jen Starling. Jen, how are you?
Hi, I'm well.
Thanks for spending time with us this evening.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
How are you feeling tonight?
I'm good. It's a beautiful night. Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation.
And you're literally outside on the rooftop.
Yeah, I'm sitting on the roof at the temple. Any of the artists can come out and spray paint, or when it's cold, I soak in the sun. It's sort of a little hidden treat here near my studio.
That's awesome.
I want to take a moment and direct people out in the podcast universe to Jen's website. It's jenstarlingart.com. That's JenStarling art.com. And you can find her on Instagram at Jen Starling Art.
Oh, and by the way, I joined your newsletter tonight. So I'm excited about that.
Thanks, Wes. I don't send too many. You don't have to worry too much.
Okay.
He's not going to get bombarded.
All right. You did it trepidatiously.
This could be the catalyst, though, right now.
That's right.
Actually, I do need to send one out tomorrow.
Well, yeah, because you have this show coming up, right?
For Confronting the Void and for online holiday market affordable festival. There's a holiday show online. So all the art is $100 or less. And I need to get my people on that for the weekend.
So my wife signed up for Marshalls, right? And I get like 3 emails a day from them. Plus then they have like Marshall's Reward, Marshall's Clearance, Marshall's. And it's just like never, like you open up your thing, it's like Marshall's. And then the next one is Kohl's. So you know where we shop.
That's the worst. Yeah. Yeah.
So where can people find this online art festival?
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure the website is affordableartfestival.com, but if I'm not correct on that, I've been posting about it. So my Instagram, I have posts with the link is actually in my bio right now. But I don't know that the episode will be out in time because that's this Saturday and Sunday.
Got it. Yeah. It's just this weekend. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a yearly thing that it's in the summer outside at Arapahoe Community College. And it is a great festival for people to know about because you can get extremely affordable art and it's a trip. People line up like, I've never seen that. There's like, I don't know, I want to say miles, but that's an exaggeration of people lined up to be let in like early, kind of like camping out for a concert or something. And then Jim, the producer who does a fantastic job, blows a blowhorn and people come like running in looking for the best deals. It's so much fun as an artist to get that kind of buying energy from patrons.
How often have you participated in that event?
I have done it 2 or 3 times. Hard to keep track with the COVID shutdown, but he started doing a few online during that and has now kept that going, which is the holiday one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's actually a fundraiser for Arapahoe Community College too. The ticket sales, which I think they're like $12 or something, all go to Arapahoe Community College's scholarship fund. So it's a good cause as well.
Yeah, that's spectacular. You're a member of Pirate. How long have you been a member there?
Yep. I believe it was September, the fall of 2020. I know it was during COVID. So, because I haven't actually had a show there yet, because of just the madness that was COVID. So this will be my first show there, but I'm not really that new of a member.
Is this your first time being involved with the co-op?
It's not. Nope. I was a member of CORE when they used to be in the Santa Fe Art District. I did a solo show there. I did one show there in 2018.
And being part of Pirate and some of these co-ops, what has that taught you?
Oh, good question. Goodness. The two experiences so far have been pretty different. I think one thing that I've probably learned is what battles to fight. Like, you have a lot of voices. I don't mean like a true battle, but where is it important to give input? There's a lot of voices in the pot, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So I want to make sure all of my contributions are kind of valuable. It's human nature. We want to contribute. I want to be selective and discerning in that. So I'd say that's one thing on a personal note. As far as, the group dynamic is always fascinating to me to watch. We have monthly meetings, and I could say is that the folks at Pirate are freaking hilarious. Like, we laugh a lot in our meeting, and you guys probably know Phil. He's a character. It's a lot of characters that have been doing it for a really long time, and that I have a lot of respect and appreciation for that. I feel honored, honestly, to be a part of that and get to witness and contribute where I feel it's beneficial. It's some really, really nice folks.
Did you already have some friends involved with Pirate? Is that how you got involved with it and knew about it?
Yeah, I do have some friends there, and it's new members are voted in, and it's not anonymous. There's a name and then the visuals to go with it, but everyone has to vote. It's like 20 members or something. I don't know the count exactly, but I wouldn't say that my friends got me in, or I don't anything like that. It's diplomatic in that everyone gets one vote. Phil gets one vote, even though he's the founder. But it's there. It was nice also entering into that setting, knowing some people that that I really like and enjoy their company.
Has there been anything that you've learned this past year being involved with Pirate?
That I've learned, I think something that got reinforced is how challenging it is for artists to focus on the business, financial, administrative side of things. And that's, it's kind of stating the obvious, but it's a nonprofit, and there's always a need to bring in revenue. Like any nonprofit, this doesn't just go for Pirate by any means, but the importance to try to collaborate and partner with folks that really do thrive on that, and have the skills on the business side of things. As a small business owner myself with just my art business, it's I feel fortunate that I don't suck at those skills, but any artist is going to tell you that's not what they want to spend their time doing. That's it's that simple, that you only have so much time and energy during the day. So the more sort of the outreach that we can do in terms of grant writing, in terms of fundraising, it's just any nonprofit is having the same challenges, and money allocated to the arts that is fairly easily accessible would just be and not a lot of red tape. But there's a need there, I guess. That's definitely something that's been reinforced, is that gap, that lack in our culture, in our sort of fabric of what we as a culture prioritize, especially in America. I mean, in my travels, I've been floored by just the difference in appreciation for art, and and its integration within the culture, from neighborhoods to politics to just everywhere. I'm thinking of Mexico City in particular. Everywhere I went, it's art everywhere. It's beautiful.
So you feel like these other countries are more supportive of their artists than what we typically do in the United States?
100%. Yeah.
There's always that battle in Congress, whether to continue to support the National Endowment for the Arts or, even public broadcasting. So it's just amazing that we as a culture don't find more, I guess, appreciation of the arts and what it can do for a community and the people living in the community, right?
Exactly. From it being cut in schools to, it's such a no-brainer that kids should be exposed, and, all the many, many benefits that come from whether it's making art, appreciating art. Yeah. Yeah.
This art thing is a relatively new endeavor for you, though you wouldn't know it by looking at your art, your work. It's compelling and sophisticated. How long have you been a full-time artist?
Well, thanks for that, Todd. It has been 6 years. 2015 in the summer. So it's been just over 6 years.
What was the catalyst to start you on this path towards being a full-time artist? What was the catalyst for that journey?
Yeah, I guess there was a few things, but the reality is that it was really, really close to the surface. So I had recently gotten a divorce. You can't sort of deny the correlation of a big life event like that. But also, it's actually, it's a little bit cosmic. I signed up for this course with a woman I have great respect for, sort of a spiritual mentor. And she was doing this course on the 4 desires, which it's sort of a law of attraction, manifestation, kind of finding your purpose philosophy by this local yoga guy, Rod Stryker. And essentially I signed up for the course to do it. And literally, I think it hadn't even started yet. And it was the next day I found this art class online. And then I would just want to watch these art videos and make art instead of doing the course, which is just hilarious. That's how close to the surface it was. I just had to think, I could use some direction. Maybe I should look for a little deeper meaning or purpose. I was craving it. I've always been creative. So I just did some of the course, but not a ton of follow through because I just wanted to be making art.
And you were always artistically inclined?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been creative in one way or another, whether, when I was a kid, my games, it was color by numbers, etch a sketch. God, I used to love to etch a sketch. I figured out the secret to make it curves, because you can, it goes vertical or horizontal really
right.
easily, but I was light bright, the spirograph, whatever the one is,
yep.
That was what I always enjoyed. I went to school for dance. So I was a dancer from about 9 through, my whole adult life. And I choreographed. I loved that creative process. So yeah, I dabbled a little bit in visual art. I took a oil painting class in college. I was always, so I went to a school for the arts in Baltimore as a dancer. But a lot of my friends were visual artists. There was this mystique around it. There was a gallery in our school, and I would go by, just even walking by, I'd go in and look at the shows, but I remember even just walking by the door and peeking in, or there'd be a live drawing session. And there was an aura around it for me that it was just magic. And I didn't quite realize it at the time. I realized it looking back. I loved being a dancer. I loved very much that time in my life, and I wouldn't change it. And I'm happy I sort of picked the right order of doing things, dancing when I was younger and visual art, as I get older. But yeah, and then I guess I was a doodler in all of my classes. Like the sides of pages of my notes were just covered in doodles. I had sketchbooks in high school, but I was very, very serious about dance. That's what I did, and I didn't question it because I loved it. And now looking back, it's just all very kind of obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
So you went to school in Maryland. Is that where you grew up, or where did you grow up?
A combination of Pennsylvania and Maryland. I grew up until about age 12 on a very small, humble farm. Not like a working farm. It was more my mom. She's British. I tell you that because of the connection with horses. She rode her whole life and was pretty serious about riding and showing, eventing. And her and my dad definitely had a strong connection with animals. So we had a ton of cats. We always had a ton of dogs and a handful of horses across from the woods. It was pretty dreamy in that respect of connecting to nature and animals from a young age. And then moved to Baltimore around age 12.
Those are, I would imagine, two very different scenarios.
Yes. And I moved because my parents got divorced. So it was, a very kind of shocking adjustment at a tough age for a kid. But, that's what makes us who we are.
That's it.
Yeah.
So from a young age, you're doing art. Did you participate in art classes like in high school and junior high and that sort of thing?
Well, no, I mean, not in high school because we danced, or I had like about 6 hours a day of class and rehearsal. So, and before I even went to that school, I was going to dance class for about 4 hours, before I moved. So I started dancing in Pennsylvania. And after school, I would go to dance class for about 4 hours a day. So there really wasn't time for art.
So the thing is like, I look at your art and I know it's a relatively, I mean, we're talking 2015, but your skills are like you've been studying all your life, and not only technically skilled, but also creatively skilled. I mean, the artwork itself, there's a lot to it, and it's just hard to really imagine, the technical skills in a matter of 6 years. That's just mind-blowing to me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Wes. So I spent the first, at least I would say 2 years, maybe 3, completely painting out of my head. No references, zero studying, no formal training. And, I wouldn't do that any differently. And the reason is I feel like, even though I look back at some of the work and I'm like, oh God, I don't feel proud of it or think it's good, but I recognize that I was finding my voice, that I was learning how to follow my intuition. I was learning how to take risks. I was learning how to make bold moves. I learned how to follow through with a painting, to fight for something that I was happy with at the time. So, it was pure creativity. And then I took a class. then I started to be like, okay, there's actually information out there. You can learn how to paint, super obvious. And it wasn't even a conscious, I want to get good. I want to get better. I don't think it was more what would be fun to do, what is interesting and pulling my attention and energy. So I took a couple of classes at the Art Student League. Generally, when you take an oil painting class, you're going to learn the fundamentals. And I kind of had this thing in my head the whole time, I'm not a realist painter. I'm not a realist painter because I wanted this freedom. I didn't want to be pigeonholed in to having to paint something that looked like a photo or a model. And I had this one particular teacher, Raj, who is such a generous teacher. He invited me to his studio, and I even joked oh, you're going to make me a realist painter. And he kind of did. very like slowly and subconsciously, I would start to see in the work, like what started to satisfy me, it just changed, and then I think I still struggled with, are you a realist painter? Are you expressing yourself? Because I knew that wasn't enough for me to satisfy me. But I guess, I kind of tinkered around with these new skills that I learned and incorporating that into what I was already doing. I was doing a lot of kind of spray paint and stencil like backgrounds with transparent portraits on top of them. That was sort of that next sort of transition. And I just wanted to keep learning. COVID came around, and that is when I feel like I learned how to paint. Like I took a zillion of Alyssa Monks has a video series that is phenomenal. She is a transcendental painter. I don't know if you two are familiar with her work. She's young, New York, very successful. She's almost like more impressive in this context. She's an excellent, generous teacher. And that, that's this theme here, right? The same as Raj. It's like, and, I could name others. I did a workshop fairly recently with Ron Hicks, a generous teacher. It's like, yes, it's like inspiring. And the fact that they can paint, that gets you in the door. But after that, it has nothing to do with that. It's what they are willing to give of themselves. And the positivity, the encouragement, especially back when I think I sucked. It's like, their encouragement and positivity, like I believed it. and it was true coming from them at the time. Like I'm a teacher too. It's a different mindset than going to a gallery or, you see their potential, you see the improvement, you see their excitement, you see all these like beautiful things brewing and you see the fight too, whether it's, frustration. And it's just such an important like piece in an artist's development is to have those generous teachers that, really make you want to keep doing it.
Painting takes a lot of discipline. Does that come from your experience being a dancer, do you think? Having that drive and that discipline?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned at a very young age that anything really, really satisfying takes very hard work, but it never felt like work. I think back to how hard I did work at, age 11, 12. And it was just enjoyable to me, like to be in that present moment, doing what you're doing, trying your hardest was satisfying. That's always been satisfying for me. I think I'm really, really fortunate. Dance definitely taught me that. Even like rock climbing too. I was pretty serious about rock climbing for a while, and it kind of overlapped with dance a little bit. That's what brought me to Colorado. But the same thing, like hard work. But the process, the movement, the challenge, the connection with nature was satisfying on so many levels. And just it's different than fun, right? Like fun is fun. We all love fun and we need fun. I was just listening to something, and fun was defined as play without purpose. And it's different. What you get out of it, it's a necessity for sure. It's like a release, but it's different than a deep sense of satisfaction of purpose. So they're kind of the opposite in that way, I guess.
That's interesting that you spent so much time rock climbing. Rock climbing is a lot of problem solving.
Yes.
And I feel like creating art a lot of times is problem solving, right? Like trying to figure out how you're going to do what, or communicate or transmit what you have going on in your head to whatever medium you're working with or on.
I think that is a great connection to make, Todd. It's interesting though, to think about it, the similarity with how I problem solve in both is actually similar in, I mentioned it earlier, intuitive process. And one is expressed in a physical intuition of what feels right, what, yeah, like a experiment in physicality, whether it be different positioning, what works for your body. And with painting, it's the same. It's not, I guess my point is that it's not, for me, it's not a problem solving in the cognitive sense of, an equation. It's very much a pool of trial and error. And, like I said, whether it's physical and with climbing or visual with painting, the kind of fun, cool place that I feel like I'm coming to now is trying to understand what makes the visual components work or not work after the fact. So letting the intuitive process happen so that I'm not, like I said, in that like cognitive problem solving mode when I'm doing it. I think you have a sense, you have a feel like this feels off. This needs to shift, or it may take a shape or something within the confinement of the frame. This needs to shift, or this needs to soften, or this needs to darken, whatever kind of variable we're talking about. And it's very much a feeling. But then where I'm getting to now that is really cool to witness after I'm in that process, because I don't want to disrupt it, I can say, why? Like, why did that happen? Oh, it was an issue of balance. It was an issue of weight. Like, what visual element made me feel uncomfortable or comfortable with this or that decision. And I think in school, you're probably taught that stuff. Like, there's artists out there saying, duh. But I guess that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that I like that I have learned it the way I have, that it feels, it very much is coming from a deep place of truth that hasn't been like tainted or influenced by, what is supposed to work or, these rules or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't know, masters from New York Art Academy would not suck, but, that's not my situation. So
I think what you're bringing is true. What you're saying is true, and that you're learning what you would be taught in art school, but you're learning it in your own way, an organic way, right? But there are a lot of artists out there that don't go to art school, and some that do, but they don't learn the lesson of, let's say, color theory, mm-hmm. or, like you're saying, weight and balance in a composition, mm-hmm. and it shows. However, mm-hmm. you obviously, from pieces that I've seen, you intuitively understand what those elements are. And then once you have the basic foundation, you can break those rules, but it still is dictated by the rules that you have learned intuitively. And that's what's beautiful about it. I think you're learning the same thing, people that spend thousands upon thousands of dollars learning, but you're doing it in a natural way. And with the beauty of the internet, with taking classes with people like Ron Hicks, I mean, you're going to come away with those different things, and you're open to critique, most likely. And those elements are going to come through. But I've seen artists that obviously, when you're looking at their pieces, and I may not be trained enough to visually see it, but something just doesn't seem right. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's maybe color theory, the color palette that they choose is in conflict with each other. And maybe that's their approach. But, but what I see of your stuff, it looks like you've been classically trained, and especially with the figurative stuff.
Thanks, Wes. Thank you. I do agree. I think, one of my best friends is not a visual artist, and he is fantastic at giving me critiques. Like, we obviously don't call it that, but, seeing things, and he doesn't know why, but 9 times out of 10, it really does make sense. And then that's why people buy the pieces, are the strongest. They go. And so it is a language that people understand, that we relate to as humans, whether we understand the whys, the nuts and bolts, or the hows, it resonates for a reason.
Absolutely. It goes back to the whole thing. People innately know when something is good, whether they can verbalize it or not, but they can see something and they'll go, that's really good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, on point.
Right. I mean, think of the masters, right? Like it wasn't because they were really popular on Instagram.
What? There wasn't any Instagram back then?
Follow Michelangelo on Instagram.
Can you imagine?
That's awesome. We should do a skit like that, Wes.
We should.
Old Masters Instagram.
There you go.
We could do a performance piece.
The resurrection.
And we'll have Jen choreograph it.
There you go.
We'll incorporate dance and acting.
Because Wes has serious dance skills.
Maybe we should stick to what we know.
What? You're not buying what we're selling? Come on, Jen. Talk a little bit about your process and the mediums that you work with and work in.
Yeah. So this body of work for my show at Pirate is a mix of collage, oil, and spray paint. I'm doing pretty much the process is I start with collage. All of the collage is based on images of original oil paintings, converted into black and white, and then some fairly low-tech digital manipulation. And I'm piecing together different images. So, for example, I'll take maybe the same size face with the same orientation. So like all looking forward, 3 different pieces. And then I'll rip different shapes out of those 3 different faces and recombine them to make a new face. I don't like to distort the imagery at this point anyway, too much. There's this sort of innate desire for calm in my work. And that, I think that's why I'm not like distorting the proportions too much. Like, there's a lot going on in terms of texture, in terms of shape. So I'm trying to balance that with the familiarity that people know from looking at a face, right? Like, and that's the rules of portrait painting, kind of basically following those rules. And that initial layout of the collage is very much my decision making is based on what I just mentioned, but also shape and value, like because it's all black and white. So the value, light to dark, is very, very prominent. And I'm trying to get enough variation that there might be like a dominant aspect or a general harmony that I'm often like it's kind of messes with me a little bit, because oftentimes in this process I've been really happy with the pieces just as they are in the initial collage stage. Like that could be a thing in and of its own. But early on I started oil painting into these, and what that does is, why I'm doing that is it's adding this element of realism. So I'm adding flesh tones and some gold spray paint as well. I'll get to that in a sec. But the realism is important to me, because not just because I, just spent 5-6 years like busting my ass learning how to paint. I'm not ready at this point to become a collage artist. Like I'm a painter. I love to paint. I love the feel and the sort of sensuality of paint. And I also really I'm very, very much interested in that juxtaposition of the realism that's coming with the flesh tones and how that interacts with the black and white, more sort of graphic quality of the collage that I'm doing. To me, that's a huge, huge part of the story, is how those 2 dimensions, those 2 stories within one image, how they relate. What story does that tell? It's the technical narrative married with the emotional contextual narrative that's very, very interesting to me. So, if I stop and don't paint into it, you only have a part of the story, even though visually it might, be an interesting, balanced piece. To me, it's only half the story. And then when the spray paint comes in, that once again, so to me, that's adding another dimension. So it's, it's this inner dimensionality that I'm interested in, of you can have 2 or 3 worlds existing simultaneously within one image, and how the edges are used to sort of express, think maybe between like sleep and awake, right? Like these two worlds that you're experiencing. And then there's the space between being awake and asleep. That's a whole nother dimension, a whole nother state of mind. But I do a lot. So I do a lot of like masking off with tape to get this like really crisp edge with the spray paint. And I often juxtapose that with a much softer painterly edge. So kind of metaphorically, these edges represent the transitions. That's something I learned actually as a choreographer, as a dancer, and as a human in life, that the interesting stuff happens in the transitions. Maybe it's between jobs, it's between relationships. It's, you're not just moving from one thing to the next. Like that is the meat of the story. And the variety. I'm looking at the work as I'm talking, as it's sitting in front of me. That that will tell your eye where to go. Once again, the transition from one thing leading to the next. What's the story in between these? I have a bunch of compositions in the show that are like the same portrait, the same subject on both, kind of cut in half or cut 3/4 on both sides of the panel. And then the subject's connecting to itself in the middle of the panel in different ways. So there's, and that is the represents the void in this scenario.
Yeah. How did you decide to do that? Like, how did you decide that you wanted to kind of take it in that kind of direction?
What's the name of this piece, by the way?
Oh, that's called Gemini Tide. That's a great example, Todd, of what I'm talking about. And sorry, you asked what was the catalyst for this composition?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually not a super, well, I was going to say it's not a like super interesting story, but this is like how most of my process works. I don't figure out the story until later. And then hopefully it is interesting, which I think it is in this case. It was as simple as I have so many of the pieces are a single figure, shoulders up. It's a very, very similar composition, and it just started to feel boring to me. I really wanted to vary the composition of the show, the overall kind of big picture. So first I started doing these, the same shape. So those are 24 by 30 horizontal, but I painted a 24 by 30 vertical. This, a little more full figure. She's kind of floating. She's kind of falling. Very, very soft, all oil paint, no collage. And I thought that was going to be in the show, like a full-on painting, pretty much like from start to finish. And then I knew I had to do more of that composition to make it cohesive and coherent. But I wasn't being pulled to paint more like that. I was being much more pulled in this collage mixed media direction. And I know that's like super, super important, right? Like you have to want to paint what you're setting out to paint. Like else, why would I even be doing this if I'm going to not create what, I desire to paint? So I sort of put that painting aside and said, okay. And it was just like playing, like I ripped this one image in half, I put it on the sides, and realized like fairly quickly that I really was digging this new composition and the story with like the hair meeting in the middle. I'm actually talking about, there was a different one that I did before the one that we're looking at. What did I just titled her? What did I call her? Shoot, I'm not going to remember right now. It was such a different representation of the title of Confronting the Void, because originally I thought of it as the gaze of this single figure, direct contact with the viewer. It made a lot of sense. That's helped me to come upon the title of the show. But then to incorporate, two of the same figure cropped like they are, actually literally creating this void in between, is so metaphoric and telling of, the void, the inner void, confronting the void that that humans experience in ourselves.
I love that.
Then like handling this space. So I have 3 of this composition and handling this space between the subject differently in all 3. Like, I kind of did one and I was happy with it. And I was like, God, can I just keep doing this? And you're like, well, is this a gimmick? Am I a one-trick pony? But then it was super cool how each one, that just trusting that the process, that this space would be handled differently. And it was like, when I look at the 3 together, they're so different, even though the composition is similar. It's a representation of that theme in very different ways.
Yeah, it's a natural part of your exploration, right? Going back to this intuitiveness. And do you think that you'll continue to explore this, or have you kind of run it, at least for the time being, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. I had mentioned to Todd earlier this week, Wes, that I have arthritis in my hand, as does he, and it really sucks. That was one of the sort of catalysts to really engage and ultimately start the collage process. Is that holding a paintbrush for too long is painful. So I do think I'll keep doing it. I think I'll do more full figures. Yeah, I have one pretty large painting in the show that is a full figure, and I see a lot more potential. I want to do them really big. That's where I'm at.
How big is big?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I do not like to work on canvas at all. So they get really heavy when you get really big, and then you start talking like different sections of panels, diptychs, blah, blah, blah. How big is big? So the one for this show is probably about 3 feet by 5 feet, which is big for me. I haven't worked super large that much, and having this new studio space is definitely open that up for me. I can actually, step way back and look at it. I could see going at least double that size, but once again, they get really heavy, and you don't just make something like that to leave it sit around your studio. You want it to be shown. You want there to be potential for someone to buy it, and you're getting to a lot higher price points. So, these are all factors, definitely not like the deciding factors in my decision to work big, but hopefully I'll have the opportunities, something will come up that really, a show or,
So you don't like working with canvas. So is primarily all your stuff on wood panels?
Yeah. MDF, cardboard. Yeah. It all is. Yeah. I can't stand working on canvas. I like a rigid surface, and I don't like a texture.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that the other day, that, there's a softness that you get with canvas, and you have to really make a concerted effort, right, to paint in such a way that you get the look that you want from it. And you said you don't like the bounce of canvas.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of tear into my surface a lot with different tools. I like to be able to scrape and scratch and just be kind of intense with that interaction. So canvas, you'll poke a hole in it.
Are you feeling really good about this new direction that you've been going in?
I am. Yeah. I'm pretty darn happy with this body of work, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think when the show is over, it's going to be a little intense. I think I'll, probably have a bit of post-show blues, not knowing what to do with myself. But I have some teaching on the docket, and then I want to jump into the evolution of this. I mean, you see, is what starts to happen is even in this process, it's started to evolve. And you're kind of like, eek, like, don't evolve too much. Like, it's got to be cohesive. I know I do have a small pile. I just showed you, Todd, of reject paintings that I did throughout this process that, didn't make the cut. So, maybe also a little time for play, a little more exploration. Although, there were times where I craved that during this process and felt like I didn't have time or room for it because there's this deadline. But, that would like last a second. And then it's been really focused. It's been really cool. Like when you show up every day and you do this and you spend hours, it starts to flow, and it just starts to come out. And it's absolutely amazing feeling. Yeah. I mean, two of my favorite pieces in the show, I did each in a day, like start to finish in one day. And can't say that at this size that's ever happened for me, but it's because I did it yesterday and the day before and the day before. I'm picking up where I left off. I don't have to warm up. I don't have to, find my groove.
Again, back to that discipline, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what people do. Like, I mean, of course they go to work, but for me, it's like, if I didn't have this to do, I'd be bored. Like what is better? I mean, I like to go outside. I like to hike, but 12 hours a day, every day, it's a lot of time to fill. And I'm definitely not going to lay on the couch and watch Netflix for 12 hours a day. I mean, never mind. We got to make money, of course. But.
So do you pretty much clock in every day? Do you have like set hours that you kind of stick to, a routine?
No, not really. I'm, since I've been, I would say at least the last month to 6-ish weeks, I wake up and I'm actually like, I really want to get to the studio. I'm just excited and anxious, and there's a lot of work to be done as well. So it's not just, for the pleasure, it's also a little bit of a stress. But I feel pulled to get here, to get to work. So, there's definitely been mornings. So I'm like, slow down, like you gotta answer the emails, you gotta, run the business as well. And then there's also just been times where, my hand hurts or I just know I'm exhausted. So I've, I think it's been, so I've been in here for 6 weeks, and I think it's been a total of 3 or 4 days that I have not been here. So it's like, okay, Jen, like force myself to take a day off. But that being said, I would say like my general hours are anywhere between 10 in the morning to like 7 in the evening. Yeah. And that, I might run out in the middle of the day. Sometimes if I get really tired and do a lap, around City Park or Cheeseman or, see a friend. Like it's nice being in Denver because I live in Arvada. So, I kind of incorporate other areas of my life into my day. So I don't, I'm not a complete workaholic, but I like to work.
Well, and you got to treat it like a job, just like you would anything else, right? I mean, if you're going to be successful at this, you have to put in the time and the work, and you have to show up.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I've got goals. I don't have time to waste.
You mentioned a little earlier on about voice. Do you think that after doing this for 6 years full time that you found your voice, or do you think it's ever evolving?
I think it's ever evolving. Yeah, I think I know what I'm interested in. I know what excites me about making art. But I think if felt beholden to a voice that exists now, then I would be limiting future growth. So and that's a drive for me too, is that curiosity of, where will it go next? That's like super exciting to me. I don't tend to see things in my mind before I do them. It's not like I have an image and then I have to replicate that image. It's much more of an unfolding and kind of responding to each previous move as I go. But with the larger work, it's interesting because I can see that a little, more clearly than I usually can. So that's exciting and maybe necessary because it's creating large work is so committing. There's, no instant gratification. It's, a little bit a day and seeing it through. So it's helpful that I can see it a little bit more clearly, a little bit more of a visual image in my head than usual.
I want to continue on with that whole idea of voice. Was there a moment that you recognized that, oh, this is my voice? This is what, when somebody looks at my art, this is what it is? Early on, because you were self-taught, were you copying masters or a teacher that you were influenced by your teacher, but was there a moment where like your voice kind of popped out and you knew that's what it was?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because my work has really changed a lot. I've definitely shifted from a much more kind of whimsical, almost like illustrative children, stuff you see in children's literature, like that stuff comes out of me very, very naturally. Like, if I have glass doors in my shower. So I'm like drawing in the steam on the glass door a lot. And that's what comes out. It's these like little whimsical girls with big heads and little owls as buddies like that, it's in me. So that's what came out at first. But I do feel like that was my voice at the time. So I guess, that's just an example of that, your voice evolving. Like I remember a friend, this was maybe like 4 years ago, asking me, like she was getting into painting, an artist. She was a jeweler, asking me like, how did you find your voice? And it like that, I think was the first time I even consciously thought about it. I was like, oh, I guess I do, I guess I do have a voice. And I completely, the credit I think there's so much for artists to gain from painting without a reference, without a target, right? With like just paint and your inner world and your experiences and the desire and need to express. But then, I did later on doing classes and whatnot, I did do some master copies and started using references and realized that I was much happier with the work when I do use references now for everything. It's a starting point. I don't want it to look like the photo, but because that structure, the realism is important to me. The structure of the human anatomy is so important to me. Although it's been very interesting because this collage process has helped me actually to very much break away from a reference. A lot of, so like I mentioned, I'm starting with the collage piece. So I have a black and white portrait in front of me, and then I'm making up the skin tones. So, I'm kind of going back to how I used to work a little bit. And that's been really fun and liberating, like not to have to keep, follow, like match the skin tone, from this reference. It's been a a sort of silver lining that I did not expect of a freedom from working this way. As terms of my voice now, I was thinking I was driving, how so many like good thoughts, freedom of consciousness when you're driving, of picturing a whole show. So I think, Todd, it was after we were talking about vulnerability in art. And, these portraits you can see their vulnerability. I think most people would agree on that. And I have this vision where Todd and I were talking about the willingness to be vulnerable for different genders. And I had this vision when I was driving of a show with all male portraits, all men's faces, like being really vulnerable. And, I paint women. It's sort of a natural question, curiosity of will that continue? I don't know. I had this vision, but I don't know that I actually have the desire to create it.
It'd be interesting for sure.
Well, I love the idea, of walking into a space and like, it's almost people expect it. The viewer expects to see that vulnerable face being subject, looking back at them as a female. And that is sad to me. Like, that is a bummer that we don't expect to see that from men. And I think it's a problem in our culture. So, can my work in some way, it's sort of a grand idea, potentially bordering on arrogant, I don't know, to think your work has that power or that to impact people. But the thought that it could potentially aid in shifting those ideas and our cultural norms is exciting.
Yeah. That consciousness, right? That shift of
Exactly.
consciousness.
Yeah, totally. That's an acceptable, normal, like we're conditioned by what we conceive as normal, right? So if I can in some way contribute to that being a normal thing, even though they're not real people, they're paintings, maybe they just have to be really, really big.
Yeah, playing off those stereotypes. I think it could be really compelling. I think you could do it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I have to want to do it. That's the thing. I mean, I've definitely painted a handful of men, a couple that I've been happy with, the outcome, the final product. Yeah, honestly, I think that what that gets into is the fact that my work is it's self-portraiture, not in that I'm not using myself as a model. I'm not painting me, but it's very, very much reflective of my life and how I feel. So, and my identity as female. So to shift that, would be interesting.
So when you look at those paintings across from you there, at the work that's going to be in this show, what do you feel? What kind of words come to mind?
I'm definitely excited, proud, I'm curious. Yeah, each one's super different too. Like that's sort of the general, but then I can get like sucked into an individual piece and, there's definitely an overall sense of curiosity. Like, where does that come from in you? Like, what, like, I know it's a piece of me. There's no question about that, but what is she saying? What is she like? Because she's looking at me. I'm looking at me.
Well, I would think most artists are autobiographical to a certain extent. It's coming from within, so it's got to be somewhat, not that you can't paint things that aren't a reflection of you, but I think most people, especially stuff that is more vulnerable, is a reflection of yourself, right?
I 100% agree. Even if you're painting a still life, the choices, and I teach this because I want them to be artists. I want them to feel that excitement of expressing themselves. All of your choices, your brushstroke. That would be the best example of how you are making physical contact between the brush and the surface is going to be completely individual. It's like touch. It's super, super personal. So yeah, I agree that all art is a representation of the artist. And for me, the stuff I'm really interested in and drawn to, the artist is not shying away from that. They're really celebrating it and delving into it and embracing that vulnerability, because that's, very, very much what it is.
So in looking at the work the other day in your studio, these are some words that it came to mind looking at these pieces. And I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with them, but enough. So I saw intensity. I saw contemplative, very much thinking. I get that sense from all these portraits. And then there's a tinge of sadness with a lot of these pieces. Is that a decent assessment? Or do you see that in some of these?
I do. I actually think that's probably a lot more accurate. It's always fascinating. This is why I love hearing what other people see in my work much more than, what I see, because yes, I agree. And I think that those qualities do exist in the work for sure.
So let me ask you this, going off a play off this. If the actual process of the painting is reflective of the artist, right? Is the reflection of the viewer, is it a reflection of them? So when Todd sees something contemplative and sad, is he seeing a reflection of himself? And maybe I should ask Todd, do you feel like what you're seeing in the painting as the viewer is a reflection of you, or is this what you're trying to pick up from the artist?
I don't know that I'd thought of it in terms of myself per se. I'm just kind of assessing what I feel from the person depicted in that portrait. I think that's my take. Now, had I spent more time with it, I mean, I'm obviously relating, I think, on some level to it, because I really enjoy Jen's work, and I enjoyed spending time in her studio looking at all these pieces for the show. So they definitely resonated with me. I don't know that I went deep enough to really put myself into the painting.
Right. I was just kind of curious because obviously we've talked about this before. I'm moved to tears a lot of times with music, poetry, good writing, fine art. And I don't know if it's a melancholy or, well, some of it's joy, some of it's pure joy. So it depends on what I'm listening to, I suppose, or what I'm reading. But it's definitely pulling something from me. Maybe that's the way I kind of look at it. So I was just kind of curious. On the surface, I was thinking, this is what you're thinking the painting is. And like you said, this is what I was getting from the painting, the person in the painting. So I was just wondering if it went a little deeper than that too. It's interesting.
I mean, I would guess that these are all very human emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what I am connecting to when I'm painting is my emotional landscape. So, if you are a thinking, feeling person, I think you're going to connect on those levels, on that emotive level that I'm definitely tapping into, not in a controlling way and by any means. I'm not trying to control the emotional narrative of the work. I'm much more focused when I'm actually working on the technical narrative. And that's the beauty, because it takes myself out of the way to let the sort of subconscious flow into the work. So, I think that's awesome that if people can relate to it on that deep of a level, that, yeah, it's intense and contemplative and, even sad. I kind of shied away from that sadness thing for a bit in the work. Yeah, I miss also because I do so many of these festivals and you're just talking to so many strangers. It's why are they so sad? I just want to, I'm like, I'm at work.
I was going to follow up with that. I was going to ask you if people I could see people perceiving these as being a little bit on the darker side of things, right? They're not like, I think they have a calming effect, but they're not always like ultra cheery by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Even if you just look at the title of the show, I mean, basically, I got to this point in the process. I maybe had half of the work done, and my friends are asking me, "What's the theme? What's the theme?" I'm like waiting for the theme to show itself, and it's like that willingness and admission, to not shying away from what this work is doing. And I had a list of kind of working titles that now are becoming titles of the individual paintings. But confronting the void, that that kind of says it all. Like, no, they're not happy, cheery paintings. But there are some of the paintings that do speak to the walking through the shadow into the light. It's like, I think if you looked at each one, you'd kind of be able to pick out which are a little bit more. I have one willing to flight. I have one willing to fight, willing to flight. Like, this kind of whole process of ultimately confronting the void to get to the light, to, stop harming yourself and others. And I believe that we cannot get there without confronting our own, however it manifests in different individuals, essentially, healing our sense of lack within ourselves. And if we can heal that, if we can sort of fill the void with self-love and not with the numbing agents of our culture, ultimately we will be happier, healthy humans, much more connected to each other.
A lot of these portraits to me have like this kind of connection to the past.
Okay.
They have this like Victorian kind of vibe to them. Where does that come from? Almost like ghosts. They're almost like ghosts.
Well, that's, I think, the interdimensionality that I was talking about. Well, okay, so the time piece is really interesting because that you mentioned, because they're recycled imagery of old paintings. Like, I need to count, right? Like the digital aspect of it, they're all paintings that I did previously. So I want to count like how many original paintings go into this show. Like, if I count right now, like, I mean, it might be five. All of these different iterations come from the rearrangement of only 5 different paintings. So when you bring like time into the mix, that's this, I'm like doing this loop thing with my hand because it's that recycling of, of infinity, that energy is not made or destroyed, right? It's just like the recycling of energy, and the ghost, the kind of Victorian ghost aspect. I think that's cool that you see it. I see it too. I do. I totally know where it comes from. Definitely not. I mean, I think, there is some beauty in the mystery. Yeah. I mean, I'm very definitely connected to my dreams. And I think that sort of subconscious part of me plays out in the work. the black and white gives like an old timey feel as well. I talked about that just juxtaposition with the realism and the black and white. Yeah, I guess that brings a question of like, how much do I want to understand this, right? Like, I'm kind of okay with there being, well, then what I'm saying is that is where I'm as much interested in what other people see and experience as what I even have the capacity to see about it. Because I only have so much ability to know what it means. It's like, like how much can you really, really know yourself? You try and it's important for sure, but to see yourself reflected by someone else, like what Wes was talking about, with what Todd is seeing, what the viewer is seeing, it's such a big piece of the puzzle, right? It's completes the loop. And I mean, that's why I want to show the work, right? Like, you were talking about like the outsider artists and artists that like never show. It's fascinating. And I have friends that like don't really care about showing the work so much. And to me, it's really important. It's, I respect if it isn't. Like, I think there's a beauty to that as well, but that's not me.
Interesting. Because I was actually going to ask you if process was more important than the final outcome, the final piece. But you kind of just answered that right there, in that you do want to show it. And, you've put all this hard work into making this happen. Obviously, you enjoy the ride, but at the same time, you want it out there so other people can have an experience with it, right?
Yeah, like I want to see myself through other people's eyes. I think that's to me, that's being human. Like, we are hardwired to connect. If I had to choose, heck yeah, I'd choose the process. No questions asked, but we don't have to choose. So I want the whole deal.
The whole enchilada.
I want the whole enchilada.
Hello, it's Todd Pearson. Happy fall to everyone. Wes and I want to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on their Instagrams. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Jen Starling, and you're listening to the Tenant Podcast.
I want to talk about this piece. I really like this piece a lot.
Not one I've thought of, Todd.
Okay. A lot of times Wes and I are on the same page about, what resonates with us or what grabs us all of a sudden. But talk about this piece a little bit.
So
is there a name for that yet, or is that unnamed?
She is unnamed. So this is an early iteration of this piece. This was one of the first collages that I did. So there's very little paint in it, but I've taken the image. This is where it gets super cool. I think I've taken the image of this into new work. So I look at it like, okay, so I got a little story here. When I was, I think in second grade, I have this vivid memory of sitting at lunch at school eating and looking at someone's lunchbox. It was a Sesame Street lunchbox. I remember it was like green, sitting there on the table, and on the lunchbox, the character, the Sesame Street character, was holding the same lunchbox. There's a picture of it. So in that lunchbox was the character holding the lunchbox. In that lunchbox, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was like the full-on comprehension of infinity at that moment in second grade. It blew my mind. And that's what can happen with this work. So the original of this was an oil painting, took a photo of it, digitally manipulated it, made a collage of it, took a image of this, digitally manipulated, not much in the digital side, very, very little, mostly black and white, a little bit of messing with the levels. And then I have pieces of this, and I can count 1, 2, I can't see all the work, but I think there's pieces of her in 4 different new pieces for the show. So then I can take an image of each of those 4 new pieces and make, whole new renditions of those. So that's sort of like a little bit about process. Were you, was there something more specific in terms of content that you were curious about?
No, I just think it's cool that this is an early piece with this collage work. And I'm glad we're talking about it, because now you're explaining how an experience that happened to you, a pivotal experience that happened to you during your youth comes into play later on in your life, and how you take that and incorporate it numerous times into other creations. And I think that's fascinating, and it's brilliant is what it is. Like, this whole process that you're explaining is really like fantastic.
And I want to clarify a point. So the original piece was an oil painting that you had done. So you're collaging your own work.
Yes, exactly. So the original piece was a full color. I mean, I wish I could show it to you. A full color oil painting.
Okay. Because most people, when they collage, they're appropriating other people's artwork, or pick magazines or whatever. So I just wanted to clarify that you're actually collaging your own work.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's important to me too. I'll have the people know that. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe I'll get over that, and it won't even matter to me at some point. But not even. I will take that back. Not even that people know it, but that's how I'm doing it is important to me at this point of the game. I really, that was another really profound take home from the workshop I did with Ron Hicks. Everything's sort of profound. I feel like you've learned it, but it's like reinforced in this way that just is really important at the time. And that was that you need to be the essence of your work, that you are in the DNA of the work through and through. And that's super, super important to me. And that I don't feel, for me, wouldn't be the case if I was using sourced imagery. I mean, some collage artists do it beautifully, no question about it. And I don't know, that could shift or change for me, but at this point, and also being a newer artist, maybe I still kind of, feel like I want or need to prove myself to some extent, whether it's, to myself or to others, definitely, to myself primarily, that, and plus I like it, that it's speaking what I want to be saying.
Yeah, I like this piece a lot. And let's talk about it in this piece specifically. So obviously it's from an oil painting. So talk about, it looks like gold leaf, but what is the gold in it?
Yeah, that is ripped up papers. So it's not gold leaf. It's just all the paper that I add. I do in this one, and I think maybe just like one other one in the show. Usually I'm ripping up this paper that the black and white paper. It's bond paper is what it's called, that the images are printed on. Usually I'm just using that, but I did add some gold to this one. I'm really sticking with this very limited color palette throughout this body of work, which includes the black and the white of the prints, some flesh tones, and then the incorporation of gold. Mostly it's spray paint. I feel like the gold is really important because it adds some warmth. So black and white are like the coldest colors. So this grayscale is pretty cold. The flesh tones add warmth, and then the gold just, really kind of adds this contrast that I feel like is visually effective. So I did that on this piece, and it's funny you guys mentioned the anvil. I can't believe you mentioned the anvil on the head and the Roadrunner scenario early in the show. But I've always thought this is like an anvil on her head, and like obviously not a literal anvil, but this kind of warrior helmet, armor. Do you guys have any insight on the symbology of that? Maybe she's like protecting herself from being crushed, right? Like from the anvil.
Could be, yeah.
She's very strong. That gaze, which a lot of the ones in the show have closed eyes, but you do have some that have opened eyes, and they all have this particular gaze that just draws you in. And I will say that with this particular piece as well, there's a strength there, an underlying strength. At the same time, I see that vulnerability that we've talked about, and that we had a great conversation the other day in your studio about. The eyes are amazing on this piece.
So do you think one of the eyes shows vulnerability, like more so than the other? And I guess what I'm asking is, do you see different qualities being portrayed in each eye?
I do see that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, there's one that's slightly squinty and the other one's not. And so the one, and I don't know if this image is reversed, I don't think it is, but the one that's kind of on the right-hand side that's squinting, very stern, like she's ready to stand her ground if need be. That's what I'm getting. And maybe the other side. So if you were to like cover her half face, you've seen those images where they manipulate, where they invert the right side and make an image, and they take the left side to make a complete face, and they look like two different people. It's the same thing, where on the left side, I see something that's a little bit more maybe vulnerable, but definitely the right side is like, I'm standing my ground, and you're not pushing me out of here. That's what I get from it.
Yeah, I see that too, for sure.
I totally agree with that. And she's so beautiful. That right eye, like Wes said, has this like, don't fuck with me look about it. And the left one, and it's because the way that you painted these catch lights in these eyes too, there's a lot more light or life going on the right-hand side. And the left-hand side, there's that vulnerability that comes into play. Like something has happened. Something has changed inside of this person, possibly something bad. I don't know, but definitely that was life-changing and that she carries with her. So it's interesting. And, there's a little bit of that, even though it's not like the strength that you see in the other eye, there's like the shield that has been pulled to the front, it's a beautiful piece. So this iteration of it is not this anymore.
That this one sold, but there are pieces of this in the show.
Okay.
Yep, but not this
particular piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So one other, I guess, observation I made when I first saw this, it looked a little masculine. So I was thinking it was a young boy.
Oh, wow.
Like a teenage boy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's the lack of hair, like because there's all this white around it. Maybe that's what I'm feeling. But I, and maybe that's the sternness. Like I'm connecting this masculine side, like I'm holding my ground, and not to read too deep into that, because when I saw her, there's definitely a more masculine feel to her than like some of the other pieces that you have. And maybe you planted that seed when you started talking about, painting more men, and that you've done some, and so maybe that seed was planted. But I do have a question. So in this form of collage, how do you get the images to stick to the substrate? Is there a certain kind of glue you use? What do you use as an adhesive?
Yeah, I'm just there's a couple different mediums that I've used, but like Mod Podge is one. Liquitex makes a matte medium. They're just water-based glues essentially. So yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, that I start with the collage process, which is water-based, and then let all that dry and then shift into the oil layer on top of that. And this is spray paint as well. And I can't go back to, once I've shifted from water to oil, I can't go back to, using the water-based medium, which Todd and I talked about that a little bit the other day. At first, I kind of thought it was a problem. It seemed like a challenge. Like I wanted that freedom to go back and forth, but I've adapted to knowing that that's just sort of the stages of the process, which is fine. I mean, I don't like painting with acrylic. I mean, that would be the solution. If I painted with acrylic, I could re-collage at any time. The stages would be interchangeable, but I actually started painting with acrylic for those first couple of years, and have taught it a bunch. I'm just have no interest. I really don't like it anymore.
So the colored portion that goes down her neck and off her shoulder, is that paint, or is that a
yeah
paper?
Yep. So that's a glaze. That's a pretty thin, transparent layer of a warmer color again. I can't say exactly what color, because it was a little bit ago, but that might even be spray paint. I think that was spray paint, with a thin dark glaze on top of it to like make it look like hair, and that there's kind of a texture to it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It adds a lot of interest to that area that's real dark and gives it a little lighter feel to it. I really like that edge.
Thank you. Yeah, that warmth, throughout is super important, even if it's subtle. If it's used sparingly, I think it's really important.
What have you found that you really enjoy about this process? You kind of touched on it a little bit when I visited with you, as far as it sounds like it's very tactile, and it's you take some kind of satisfaction into dissecting these pieces. You actually said it's kind of gets a little violent at times.
Oh yeah. I like that description of it, the dissecting. I hadn't thought of it like that. That's cool. Yeah, there's a bunch of things I really enjoy about this process. It feels less technical. An oil painting from beginning to end, and maybe this is a lot because I am a newer painter. It's there's just a lot you have to get right, in the structure, the proportions, the value structure. It's heavy on the technical, and I enjoy the range of process between, let's say, creative and technical, and all of the variation in between. So to start with some parts, these ripped out pieces of paintings that I already did, I'm not sort of, I'm sort of ahead of the game in that respect, that I can just piece different elements together. I'm not having to worry about creating each piece. The eye is already there with that kind of structure already present, but it's a very creative process in how I piece everything together. At my heart, what I love about making art is the creativity behind it. That's what's exciting and satisfying. I do love the technical aspect very, very much. It's a different mindset where, I have a target. I don't, if I'm super, super tired, sometimes you're spent. You're like, your creative well is dry. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to render this hand today. And that's like a beautiful kind of meditative process that's very different from the creative process. And I feel like working this way with these materials is a really nice balance. So, once I kind of have fun with putting these different parts together in different ways, and I hit on something that I like, then I can, add color and play with edges and do all this other stuff that, there's is a technical component to all of these different stages that I'm talking about, but it just feels really, really balanced, and that I can kind of go in between the different energies of making the work. I don't have to stay, too long in what I'm kind of asking of myself. I also, there's something sort of, you mentioned that the tactile quality, and I think it's significant that I rip all of the paper. I'm not using X-Acto or a straight edge. So the reason I rip it is because I love the edge that it creates when you get the rip has this white edge to it that's like showing, ripped off the ink on like the part that you're keeping. And it has just a new edge that you really can't create. I mean, you could do it with white paint, but if you really look up close, you're going to see it's white paint. It's not the actual rip of the paper. So I love using the ripped edges as part of the visual. For me, like I said earlier, I like to work with panel because I do scrape and scratch and rip the surface. A lot of times I do add stuff. I'll pile something on, be it paint, and then, remove it, scratch into it. And once again, that goes back to that range of energies that, my relationship with the surface, my, what do I need to get through to get where I maybe want to end up. Once again, confronting the void. Time is wasted. Like if I spend an hour putting on paint, rubbing it around, wiping it off, that, and it might feel very frustrating because I'm not, ultimately the end result isn't where I know I need to be, but I need to release that energy in some way in order to get to where I want it to be. And I think that's, it's very much, it's therapeutic. It's that kind of energetic release that, we're calling it destruction. That ultimately gets you to be in a space to build something new, tear it down to build it up. Ultimately, not being afraid of that, not shying away from, the Hindu god Shiva, the god of destruction. That is part of our nature, and like we talked about earlier, I would, if we can recognize that part of ourselves and express it in a healthy way that doesn't hurt ourselves or others, and even use it as a fuel to create something, like how cool is that?
And that actually is a form of vulnerability as well, right?
Right. People they're scared. They're scared of destruction, understandably. I mean, there's been horrific things that happen that, are absolutely, can destroy life. But I guess I don't think it has to be viewed that way. If you think of it in terms of, certainly, a part of the cycle of life, absolutely, no question. Like, I guess the best way I can talk about it is, in my personal experience of expressing myself, it is an energy that exists in me. And if I let it out, there's a freedom in what I express. It's not tight. It's not controlled. It's not it's expressive. And then that's what people say, right? Like, that's what you look at your work. It's like explosive, or it's got these brush strokes, and you can tell like it wasn't planned. It was just raw human emotion. And that, there is such a range. And I think it's really important that we're not scared of it, because if we're scared of it, we'll suppress it and it will come out. It will come out in some way. And that's what's scary. So like, take anger, right? Women in particular, it's not acceptable to be angry. So anger is correlated to autoimmune disease, which is, so it's just, our biology and our psychology is 100% linked. So if we can find healthy ways to express the gamut of human emotion, it's it's kind of a no-brainer.
I thought that was interesting. You say women in our society aren't allowed to express anger. Do you feel like it's okay for men to express anger, or in society?
I do. I think it's considered normal. It's considered in some ways expression of strength. And for women, we're considered crazy, nuts, psycho bitches. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, super messed up. So yeah, women suppress it because they want to be nice and liked and people pleasers, and get sick. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, men have their own plight. Absolutely. You guys aren't, you're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to be vulnerable. Like, that's, I think, I can't say what that's correlated to some other health. I can't think off the top of my head what it is. It's another health issue that the theme is that suppressing of emotions correlates to physical health.
Interesting.
And then we have assigned that to gender.
Sure. I can understand that. Don't you think we've come a ways though? I feel like men can be more vulnerable and can show emotion and can be sad more so than, and maybe it's just a reflection of who I am, but let's say 30 years ago, I think men couldn't show vulnerability. My dad's generation, they weren't big huggers. My dad didn't tell me I loved him until I told him, and we say it all the time now, but usually it's me that says, I love you, Dad. And then he'll, grumble, I love you too, kind of thing. But I think we're starting to break down those barriers. Don't you think?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I think that's a testament to who you are, Wes, right? To like, you weren't modeled that and you've taken it upon yourself and the responsibility to make that shift. I think, the people that come into our lives, our experiences, often having kids can, does it for people. Because you have to teach this other little person, what you weren't taught, and that gives a lot of perspective. So I do think we've come a long way. I also think we have a long way to go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So the show at Pirate, how many pieces will there be?
There's a total of 17. I kind of have the layout all planned, and currently 1, 2, 3 are unfinished. They're all, I would say, at least halfway done of the 3. So it's within sight.
And I got to ask you, how's the piece that was sitting on the easel the other day? How's that coming along?
I knew you were going to ask, Todd. I probably finished that in 10 minutes after you left.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it like totally came together. Yeah.
Wow.
I was so relieved.
Well, good deal.
Yeah, thanks. Unsolved mystery is now solved.
And this is a solo show, correct?
It is. Yep. So it's not really new. It's been there for about 3 years, but Pirate in Lakewood is separated into 2 different spaces, a bigger room and a smaller room. And I'm in the smaller room, and then the bigger room, it's a group show. It's an outsider show. So what that means is basically any non-pirate member can bring work in. Work is being accepted on the 30th of November. You can bring in up to 3 pieces and $15, and then that back room will be plastered. It's a super fun show. I did it, I don't know how many years ago now, before I was a member at Pirate. I had a couple pieces hanging in that show. So I definitely encourage artists to participate. It's going to be a well-attended evening, I would imagine, and lots of fun.
Cool.
And tell us, what is the size range of the pieces that will be in this show?
Yep. So I have about 6 16 by 16s. So that's the smallest. And then I have a bunch of 24 by 24s and 3 24 by 30s. This is all inches. And then the larger piece that I mentioned, that's about 3 by 5 feet.
And have you priced it all out?
I have sort of general kind of standard prices for those sizes. I'll stick to that. I have to probably give a little more thought to the 24 by 30s. And then the bigger one too. So that might take a little thought, but I have kind of general formula that I go with by size. Everything that's the same size will be the same price.
And since we're on the subject of kind of business type stuff, what is the price range of an original Jen Starling? Where does it start and what does it go up to typically?
Yeah, so an original, so the 16 by 16 will be around 100, around 800. And then with the bigger pieces, like just under about 5K. I haven't done any smaller original in a while. Honestly, I really don't have much desire to do anything smaller than 16 by 16 these days. But I also do like to give people a little bit of a lower price range, because 700, isn't a small chunk of change for a lot of people, myself included. So I do like to have stuff, within the $300 range, but that means, painting 10 by 10 ish. Which just feels really small right now. I do have prints, and I think at the show I'm going to do these little wood block mounted prints, 6 by 6 inches, and with a depth of about 2 inches, limited edition. So I have been doing those, and I think I'll probably have a handful of those at the show, and probably some paper prints as well that are around the $50 and under price range.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool when I looked on your website that you offer different products at different price points. So, people that, can't afford an original have an opportunity to buy prints of your art or other apparel and bags. And, I thought that was kind of interesting. Are you going to continue to do that aspect of it as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have bags. I do have some shirts, T-shirts with the graphics being my art, and I'm almost out of those. So I do have to decide. I do a lot of these festivals, like spring through fallish is how I make a good portion of my income as an artist. At this point, those are pretty crucial, and having those lower price points is absolutely necessary. We'll see where sort of my career takes me as far as that goes. The festivals they're tiring. They're a lot of hard work, very labor intensive, lots of travel. I would love to be able to knock that down. It can be really fun. It's an awesome community of, traveling circus for sure. But I would ultimately rather be in the studio. So I'm hoping to kind of make more of a shift in that direction.
About how many festivals do you do a year on a normal year? I know that things have probably been a little weird the last 2 because of COVID, but
for sure. I think the last time I counted, it was about 13.
Wow.
Which is actually on the lower side of what people do. They're starting in the spring again. I have a lineup of some spring shows that I'm looking forward to, getting on the road with the music you like and the, sun shining and, beautiful Colorado. There's definitely a sense of freedom to that. And it's kind of, there's an adventure, but then you get rained on and, no one buys anything. And it's a life of extremes,
Right.
for sure. Yeah. It's a gamble. You have a great show, you have a shitty show. It's an adventure.
Yeah. We've talked to a number of artists that used to provide prints or explored that, then decided, that's not their audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so went with only doing originals.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to artists that's their brand is just originals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked to artists that like really want to democratize their artwork and have price points for everybody. So, whatever works for you, and transitioning into, not doing festivals and doing, just doing studio work. I think that's awesome too.
I guess I look at it, I do want my work to be accessible, financially, but I also look at the balance in my life. And I teach, and I feel like that is the area where I really do give back, and where I feel like I can make a sort of positive contribution in that regard. And then when it comes, to making the work, I really, I have a different vision for myself that is a little bit more, I don't want to say self-serving. The process itself is pretty isolated in the work, but the teaching is a little bit more social and maybe taking the festivals out of that equation if possible.
So I want to kind of go down this road if we can. Talk about how you got into teaching and what kind of courses you teach.
Yeah, so I've actually been teaching in different settings for probably over 25 years. I used to teach dance. I've worked for about 12 years at a rock climbing gym, coaching, teaching. I was also supervising the programming and teaching art now. So I teach at the Art Student League, at Curtis Arts Center, and I do some online courses for Carol Bullock School of Art, which is all online. Pretty big, lots and lots of offerings. She does a fantastic job getting it out there. So yeah, I've been doing it for a really long time. It always it's always been fulfilling for me. I like to have those relationships around, kind of based on this common interest and common passion. I get super nerdy about certain elements of art. You mentioned color theory earlier. I can't remember the context, but I got my insides, lit up when you even said the words. But the challenge of, articulating things in a simple, efficient way that makes it kind of readily understandable as much as possible for students is something that I really get a kick out of. And that encouragement piece that we talked about earlier, having had some, really, really amazing positive influences in my life from a young age, from my dance teachers through to visual art. It just was so formative in my development as a person that I feel like that's the area where I really can give back. And it's, it's a good balance to being more of a sort of hermit with the process of creating my own work.
So how else do you go about selling your art? You talked about festivals and you talk about teaching as part of making your art life go. How else are you selling art?
I sell some online for sure. I see, the website is really a place to drive people, without looking at the analytics, but I couldn't say for positive, but I don't think people find me through random Google searches, but it's a place to send people. And that's, through social media for sure, and I definitely get random sales through social media. Just I'll post something and then someone inquires about it. I've been growing my email list, since I, started doing festivals. I always have a little, email sign up on there. And, that's what they say, like with social media, you're, subject to the algorithms, but what they can't take away from you is your website. So that's where I'm always trying to drive people. Certainly shows, I certain gallery shows, here and there, but mostly, those three things. I definitely get followers through collectors through through teaching.
Commissions? Do you do commissions?
Yeah, I do. I did a handful over COVID. They were pretty fun projects. It's haven't done any for a bit. There's always sort of potential irons in the fire, but it's a pretty small percentage.
Gotcha. Do you like doing commissions?
It's okay.
And we know what that means, Jen.
No,
and it's quite all right.
No, let me be fully honest here. I don't like the idea of doing commissions. Every time a commission comes in, I feel a sense of trepidation. Every time I start the process, it's fine. Every time a person, gets the image and responds, I love it, I love it, I love it. Thank you so much. I am so grateful and touched. So it's a weird thing. It's like, if I could just get over that initial, like, I don't get to paint whatever I want today. It doesn't have to look like this person. It doesn't have to turn out. And just, the anticipation is the problem, not actually the doing of the painting. And, everyone that I've done a commission for, like, they come to me because they like my work. So they're really easy to please. Like, they're not expecting something totally different than what I do. So it's a good, I remind myself going in, it's like they already like your work. You're already halfway there before you even, if not more, before you even started.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like you're painting their Aunt Sally and you're taking artistic liberties with it, right? And they're like, that doesn't look like Aunt Sally, or that's not what I was anticipating. They're letting you do your thing, right?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think they are open to me doing my thing, but that's where it gets tricky because I don't feel as free because I know, I'm more locked into capturing the likeness, but that is also a fun thing to do. It's a fun way to work. Like I was talking about earlier, I tap into a different part of my creative range. And it's a more kind of meditative, very sort of calm, specific place that I enjoy. It's, less exploration, more technical. But then, I have fun with areas, there's areas of painting that you can always be a little more free with: the background, the hair, the body. But, I'm not going to, the structure needs to be there for it to look like that person. So, there's a balance.
So along this whole, what you just put out there, and we talked to you, I don't know, a month and a half ago at Valkyrie Gallery. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that we really had a chance, Russ and I, to interact with you. You touched on something that when you go to these festivals, sometimes people don't quite get what you do, right? Mm-hmm. talk about that just a little bit, because I imagine that can be an interesting conversation, to say the least. And when you're talking with people that don't quite grasp it.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hilarious, the things that people say and do. You have to be a little bit armored up. One of the big things I get is, do people actually buy paintings of people they don't know? And I just say, well, if they didn't, I would be at work right now.
I mean, I think that's a fair question, though, because I've often looked, walking into a gallery, it's like, what sells? Like when I'm looking at photography, I don't see like me buying somebody's portrait of their cousin, right? But maybe it's because I like landscapes. I could see maybe landscape photography selling. And it's the same thing, why would I buy Madam X other than it's a beautiful painting by John Singer Sargent and well done? But it's of a woman I don't even know, but yet I'm compelled to do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really isn't about, I mean, there's a couple different answers to that. Let's start with the genre of portraiture figurative work. It much more about the appreciation of the light, the gesture, the mood, they're all visual information that people can find beautiful. And, in that instance, obviously it needs to be like very, very well painted. But besides that, I think, and that's to some extent why I'm really not interested in painting portraits. I'm not interested in portraiture. The best sort of little story I can give you to exemplify what I mean is that you mentioned David Bonner Gallery in Scottsdale area. Yeah. So when I was there taking that workshop with Ron Hicks. He had some work there, and he was there kind of talking to a few of us that were in the workshop. It was super awesome. Like, I'll never forget that. Just being very, very open about the work. And then, so his work was hanging on this wall, and then across the wall, there was this other figurative work by a very successful, well-known, beautiful, beautiful painter, beautiful paintings. And I was talking to my friend who was in the workshop. We were kind of looking at the two. And, I was like, I expressed some sort of quandary about, I can't put my finger on, like, what's the difference? Like, I know these are gorgeous paintings, speaking about the other artist, not Ron's, his are gorgeous and beyond. And how he put it, he's like, well, it's like this guy is painting a person, and this guy, Ron, is painting people. Like, he's capturing that human experience, humanity. And I think, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I think, when you see yourself in that portrait, or, I don't even like to call them portraits because that's layered with this meaning of likeness. You don't see Aunt Sally, you see yourself.
Yeah. And Ron said he doesn't use models. Like, these are composites of people that he's made or completely made up in his mind.
Yeah.
Much like you, right?
Well, no, I can't even, I'm always starting with a reference. In this, I used to, before I was really doing painting realism, I didn't, but they were like, it's a very, very different than what I'm doing now. Although what is starting to happen now with the collaging is that I am seeing, I've always sort of been very attracted to people that have like really unique proportions, like a small chin, big eye, these just some people that you see like, God, they're so interesting looking. And that's like what always attracts me about people, little kids are a good example because that's exactly it. They have these little chins and these big eyes. But I'm starting to go back to that with the collage because I can take the different key parts of that weren't put together in a proportionate way, in quotes. Since I have been painting in a realistic style, I've always used a reference, but not with the skin tones that I'm adding to this body of work, because I already have sort of the structure in terms of shape and value was already laid out for me with the recycling of the old imagery. I can have a lot of freedom with the skin tones.
Yeah.
Do you people watch a lot?
Do
you observe people?
Yeah, I do. And when they're standing right in front of me talking to me, I'm looking at the cools around the eyes or the color, the shape. Yeah, very much so. I'm oftentimes painting people as I'm talking to them.
So you're really tuned in on from a painter standpoint. Do you observe body language too? Or is it more just like looking at skin tone and, like you said, the eyes and structure of a face? And
yeah, I think at this point, it's mostly the facial features. I'm guessing that will probably expand, but I mean, I do, pre-COVID, I do love to go out dancing, and I love watching people dance. So, it does have potential to expand that observation, but I think it's also easier when you're close up and someone's talking to you to see the detail, to see notice more.
Wes had a piece that he wanted to talk about, so
I'll let the artist choose which one. So I'm looking at two different ones. One's called Breakthrough, and one's called Soulmates. And both of them are very intriguing to me. Which would you like to talk about?
Probably Breakthrough.
All right, let's talk about Breakthrough.
That is a beautiful piece.
It is. So talk about that piece. I really like this piece. Composition wise, I love the fact that her head is chopped off at the top and not, the full head. So composition wise, this is really appealing. Obviously, this whole idea of breakthrough, which I'm not sure what that means yet. And then the hand kind of pushing against the plane pushing against, I guess, the plane of the painting. I don't know if, or the outside, pushing out of the painting. And then I'm really intrigued by what's in the background on the right-hand side. So can you talk about this piece?
Yeah. So I painted that in March this year. And I did a photo shoot. I don't always do photo shoots. Once in a while I do. And this is a friend of mine's daughter. She's about 15. And just like a breath of fresh air. That's just like one of these lovely, lovely young people that is just like a shining light. And she, she's a dancer. And we went out close to my house to this reservoir. It was winter. And we did this whole photo shoot. She was super game, and we had a lot of fun. But for this particular piece, she was holding my painting palette in front of her. So, it's a clear palette, and to clean a palette, you sort of scrape a scraper, like a straight edge across it to get the paint off as much as you can. But oftentimes there's a lot of marks left behind. So, I was really interested in creating this image with a surface, with a boundary or a veil, it's often called in the painting world, between the subject and the viewer. So, and you can do that certainly with paint in many ways. I mean, that's what glazing essentially does, transparent painting. But we use this physical object to get different effects in the photo. And she was pressing her hand against it. So, and I painted it, very, very close to the actual reference photo. I had, that area that you said you liked on the side. There was a lot of sort of abstraction that was happening with playing with paint, with scraping, with, there's a lot of texture in there that we talked about part of my process earlier, kind of piling it on, scraping it off, scratching it around, just letting paint be paint, not trying to overly control it. In certain areas, of course, in her face, in her hand, I had to control it more. So, that, and I'll have to say that is what I do kind of miss working the way I'm working now. Like that, if I go that nuts with paint and something doesn't work, I can always let it dry and paint over it. If you're just working with paint, it can never, it has the potential to keep going until you find what you want. With the way I'm working now with the collage, there's certainly the area that I've decided to paint. I have that freedom, but you're constricted to that area. And since I'm choosing that area in the painting to be a part of the face, I'm doing like below the eyes down or below the nose up. So I look at it as a water line is kind of what I call it, beneath the water line, another title. Because that space is containing the features, I have to be somewhat controlled to get my desired effect, to actually read the emotion in the face, to read the features. So when I'm not doing collage, there's all these other areas in the painting, whether it's the background, the hair, the body, there's just a lot more room for sort of freedom with paint. So, and, maybe we talked earlier about the direction, maybe that will be little aha moment there that will be incorporated more. That there'll just be more areas of paint. And that makes sense with the vision being bigger paintings. Not just sort of neck, shoulders up, that more body, you have that space to work with, to have these abstracted shapes that are very painterly.
Yeah, I love this piece. I think it's absolutely, and she's a gorgeous young lady. Just a gorgeous painting. Just beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was post-COVID. So in terms of narrative, I think, there's definitely some stuff going on with this surface or sort of, literally, I saw performances behind plastic, like we had something between us as humans at all times, be it a mask, be it, walls, the examples are endless. So, I didn't actually even think of that until now, but she had this, clear piece of glass that I very much wanted to show. You can't tell that when you look at the painting, can you? That there's actually something there?
No.
The only place I could think that there might be something there is the fingertips.
Right. Because she's pressing against it.
But other than that, no, huh?
When it sort of has this effect of, is she coming through it? Is she pushing against it? I think there's some questions there of what's actually happening. One of my absolute favorite things to do in my work is to play with space. To essentially manipulate space that makes the viewer question reality, that it's not what they're used to seeing in the natural world.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Thank you.
Just a few more questions. We'll start to wrap this up, Jen. So what do you think are some of the things that people don't get about artists? Do you think there's this romanticized idea of what it is to be an artist?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that we just sort of, I think they don't often get how hard it can be to get to be happy with the work, to get to the essence of what you're trying to communicate. One of the biggest questions I get is how long did it take? People are fascinated by how long it took to do something. And, right there, that shows this thought that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That, you started and you're just working from A, B to C to D. And it just doesn't work like that. I'm often, working on 5 paintings at once, and something goes forward, it goes back, it, gets put down for 3 months. It's not a linear process. So, I think you really can't understand it unless you are engaged in a creative process of some sort. And I think, writers, musicians, I think there's for sure other creative fields that it's very, very similar. Yeah, I think they probably romanticize it. But the other side of that is it's pretty damn romantic. Like it's dreamy. I really I have to pinch myself even on a bad day. It's I am so incredibly fortunate to live this life, and the day I forget that, I don't deserve it, because it's truly, truly, truly a privilege. Talk to me in the spring when I'm traveling and hustling and, doing the festivals. I've been in the studio for, 2 months straight doing exactly what I want to be doing. So I'm definitely in this very blissful place. And, just really, really trying to push it forward so I can keep doing this more.
There was a great article I read. I think it was from the Wash Park magazine, Urban Life. And you're describing, what it's part of this life is, it's romantic, but the other side of it, they don't see and you have this great narrative, and I lost it, but you're driving, driving back from a festival in Texas in a rainstorm with your check engine light comes on. You get pulled over by a Texas cop because you have a cracked windshield. And you said your underwear is drying on the dashboard from washing it in the hotel sink. And I'm so
glad that you included that beautiful part. That's yes, that's a great telling of that story. Frickin' Texas, right? Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the other side of it.
But you wouldn't trade it this gypsy life.
I mean, I would trade the gypsy life for the studio life in a heartbeat. Oh yeah, if I could just, the top tier artists, many of who you guys have interviewed, they just paint paintings, and the gallery comes and gets them, and they get a check, a month later. That's living the dream. That's what I want. We'll see.
I know, based on your life experience and talking with you, you definitely seem like you're a goal setter. So what does the near future hold for you? Have you set any goals? Is there someplace you want to be?
Yeah, I think it took me, honestly, really just recently have I gotten, because of enjoying this time working on this show so much, have I gotten really, really clear on what I want. And that would be to be represented by a reputable gallery in Denver, for sure, in my hometown and other states. That's usually how artists do it, because if you're that, it's almost like a non-compete clause within the state. But if you can get in high end, I don't like that word, but let's say, galleries that are really connected with collectors, that they're doing the selling, they're making the match, so like matchmakers, right? Then I don't have to do any of that. I mean, how amazing, right? I just do the work and send it out and get a paycheck. I think it's, it can be intimidating to admit that that's what you want. And it can also be construed as ego or, this sort of desire for validation, which I think is natural and okay. I see it as supporting the lifestyle that I want. And yeah, no, it's an interesting sort of question in terms of how we find success, and how, you know, that path has long been the sort of accepted norm, the sort of highest level of achievement for an artist. And there's so many other ways now, which I'm, again, tremendously grateful that I wouldn't be able to make a living as an artist if these festivals didn't exist. But, you know, how to I'm simultaneously incredibly grateful for everything being as it is, but cognizant of wanting to shift to another level.
I think that's a valid goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here's another thing. I think, and I see this in a lot of professions, a lot of times people won't buy locally. Like, they don't see the experts in their own community. So a collector in Denver may not look at your stuff because they're going other places, because that's where the collectibles are, or the collectible pieces are. So sometimes leaving your, you know, painting in Denver, but selling everywhere else, that's the key, you know? So I don't, you know, and obviously I don't know the paint market because I don't, you know, I'm not a painter trying to sell my goods anywhere, but that's just the, you know, I've seen it in, you know, whether it's strategic planning and for nonprofits, there's no expert in their community. They always look outside. So maybe it's the same thing with galleries and collectors. You know, you might sell really well in Scottsdale or Santa Fe or New York City.
Well, I also think there's only so many galleries that show the genre that I'm working in. You know, it's a very, very specific genre. And, you know, in Denver, there's a couple that show this figurative work. We'll keep it that broad. But, you know, and then everyone that's competing for those spaces. So, you know, obviously it has to be the right fit in many ways. But yeah, I mean, a couple's better than none.
Right.
And you spoke to being at that ideal of where you'd like to be. Mm-hmm. I guess my former question when I was asking you about the whole gypsy life thing and doing this, you wouldn't trade this art life for a regular 9-to-5.
Hell no. No way. No way.
That's where I was trying to get to. And I knew that would be your answer. I think once you've tasted it and you have this ability to do what you love, there's no going back, you know. It's really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess the only thing that I would consider if I had the background, I don't have an MFA, I would consider teaching full-time at a university, you know, at a college. I think I do really love teaching. So I can see the appeal in that. But I think it would just cut into my studio time too much. So, you know, at this point, when I feel like I feel like what I truly want is possible. It doesn't feel like a pipe dream. Because of that, I wouldn't turn back. And I don't know that I could have said that a year ago, because I feel like the work is really getting there. But it's, you know, and like we said earlier too, it's hard to say from the inside, you know, but you have to you have to believe in it. Like, you know, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't. Like, no way. So why would I stop now?
Where does that confidence come from?
I was thinking about this really recently, Todd. Like, what makes me feel that way? And other people not. Other people be like scared to show their work. And someone asked me the other day if, like, you know, do I feel intimidated or scared for the show, like, of putting it out there? And I really don't. And I never have, even when I should have been. You know, and what I came up with when I was thinking about this, at least part of it, I don't know if it's the full story just yet, is, you know, as a dancer, I performed from a very young age. I was in the spotlight. I loved performing. And I did it a lot. And I think I just got, of course I would get nervous. Everyone gets nervous, but I got comfortable with it. I think it's definitely human nature to want to be seen. It makes me feel seen. And hopefully the paintings make other people feel seen. I think it hopefully is reciprocal. I don't know if that totally addresses the confidence, but maybe, a little bit more of like just about who I am and what has gotten me to this point. I think there's a level of like, if I'm happy with it, that's the most important. Like everyone likes positive feedback, of course, but it's really not about that. Like I'm really happy with this body of work. And I guess, when people at the festivals or whatever, like they say stuff that, I can tell they don't like it or they don't get it. It's just, take it or leave it. It is annoying, but it doesn't like crush me. I don't think it does. To me, it says nothing about the work. It says more about them and where they are in life and what their background and, good or bad. It's just, a different perspective. Yeah. It feels true. It feels honest.
Kudos for you, because I think a lot of people, and I've gone down this as like, I suck, and why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of successful people that feel that way, and they the imposter syndrome,
sure.
That whole thing, like I'm not really a painter. When they find out I'm not a painter, nobody's going to buy my stuff. Yeah. So kudos for you for, looking at your stuff and going, I like it. This is good. This is authentic. Mm-hmm. And I want to show it to the world. Mm-hmm. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you, Wes. I do have to say, though, it's not like I never have doubts or feel,
right.
Like if I go to a live, like I'm nervous, scared to live paint because I get, I do this in privacy, and what happens, but I don't show what happens between the start and the finish. Like, and when I'm teaching, you're on the spot, you're under pressure. And I've been teaching with my left hand a lot to save my right hand for what I want to do. And it looks like horrible. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be, the teacher that's like making magic in front of them. And I use it as a teaching point, like, and I fight through it. And then an hour later, after they're working, I can say like, see, it's starting to get there. And it's much more true to them being like, okay, it doesn't have to be magic from the get-go, because you don't learn a teacher that like puts it on and it's amazing in 2 seconds. It's not realistic. It's not what the students
right.
are going to do. And it doesn't really show the process of being patient with yourself, of being accepting, of the process. So, the imposter thing you mentioned is a little bit like, we were talking earlier about me. It's really important to me that I use the imagery from my old work and wanting people to know that. I think that is a little bit of that, just lack of confidence that, I'm doing this collage mixed media work, but I can paint, damn it. A real painter doesn't, Dan Sprick isn't like trying to prove to anybody that he can paint. He
right.
knows he's frickin' knows he can paint.
So let me ask you this. This is, and take it for what it is and who it's coming from. So can anybody paint like this? Can anybody learn to paint?
Oh, great question. I say yes, absolutely, if they're willing to put the work in. And a big part of putting the work in is seeing like small successes, seeing your improvement. So it just comes down to someone's patience and work ethic.
Yeah. And I think it's the same with being a successful artist. It takes a lot of work and a lot of hustle, and a lot of people that try it and can't and fail, let's say, for a horrible word. They're just not willing to hustle. And I look at myself like my whole life has been like, I've worked hard, but I've not been like Louis Armstrong hustle, right? A guy that practices when he's not playing, he's practicing playing. Every day I practice every day. I've never had that level of hustle, and that's what makes a person successful and someone that just ekes by or gives it up because they weren't willing to hustle.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when people feel like they have an alternative or a fallback, it's probably that almost works as a disadvantage. Like, I mean, of course I could find a job if I wanted a job, but my degree is in dance. Like, it's not like I quit this like amazing, high paying job career to be an artist. Like any other job, I think it could be harder if you had some cush alternative. I don't know. Maybe. I guess, yeah, if I didn't need the money, that would be an interesting question. Would I just paint and like put them, hang them in my house?
No, I think you'd still sell them. I think you'd still be out there showing your work because that's who you are. That's part of who you are.
Yeah, I think so too.
But, I've definitely seen where you look at somebody and like, you got something really special going on here, but you're not hustling. Like you're not out there pounding it. Yeah. And if you went out there and pounded it, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in. And there's somebody in specific I have in mind who I won't name, but they have beautiful artwork, but they're floundering because I don't think they're hustling. I think they're trying to get by quick and easy. So.
And you don't think it's a lack of self-belief?
Well, there might be a lack of confidence there, but their work is unique and very good. But they're struggling, and I don't think I think it's purely because they're not going to the level that they could. Like maybe if somebody would push them, maybe they just need that nudge from somebody that they respect. It's that. I don't know.
Are they younger?
No, they're maybe younger than I am. But a lot of people are younger. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on this one individual, but I think the bigger point, and I'll go back to, and we've mentioned this before, Ed Dwight, who said, you got to prepare and you got to produce. And that's the key. And Ed Dwight, who was a first Black nominated astronaut candidate for Kennedy's space program, he had to outproduce and everybody else, right? And everything worked against him. But he did multiple careers, successful in, and I would say all of them. And he was prepared every step of the way, maybe unbeknownst at the beginning, but something led to something else. And what he did early led to success in the next one. But it was all about being prepared. And then on top of that, producing to 10 times better than the next guy. And that's what made him successful, whether it's in, his sculpturing, whether it was in his businesses or his development or his, being a fighter pilot or, any of those. And being successful in one of those things, you would look at him and go, what a success. And he was successful in multiple levels. And it all because, if you hear a story, it's all because he prepared himself, even sometimes unbeknownst to him. And then he produced on a level higher than the person next to him. So, and then Todd's just listening. I love you, Todd. Don't you think? Am I right, Todd, or not?
Yeah, no, you're right on the money, man. I mean, that's what this podcast has brought to us as far as, all talking with people that work in all different types of mediums and do it. And nobody does it the same way, but the people that are doing it are the ones like yourself, Jen, that have that hustle, like Wes is saying. That's what it takes. You got to want it, Man, it's been a great evening spending time with you, Jen. And I just want to take a moment and ask you if there's anything else that you want to talk about as far as obviously your solo exhibit coming up. Anything else out there in the universe happening anytime soon in 2022 or between now and the end of the year?
Well, in 2022, my next solo show at Pirate is in July. So there'll be 6 months between the two. That's really all no, that's not all I have on the docket. I have a handful of pieces at G44 in Colorado Springs that show actually runs simultaneously to my show at Pirate.
And that's a group show?
Yep, it's a holiday show. Yep. I don't know how many artists exactly she has showing at that show. But that's all I got going on right now. I'll probably do some more open studio events here at the temple. But, and then another online course coming out through Carabolic School. That'll be coming out in April. That'll be fun. I have one currently available, and then I'll have a new one. And then some courses coming up at Art Student League, as well as Curtis carrying through next year. But yeah.
Fantastic. Hey, is G44, is that a newer gallery that you've started to show in, or is that something you've been doing for a while?
That's newer for me. Yep. She's been around for a while and moved spaces to downtown Colorado Springs. But yeah, that's a fairly new relationship. Yeah, that started over Instagram, and she's just really lovely, positive, and supportive. So invited me to bring some pieces for the holiday show, and we'll see what turns out from there.
Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Hey,
that is awesome. Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing this show on December 3rd at Pirate.
Are you guys going to come?
I'm going to come.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm going to try. I'm always trying, but it's a 6-hour drive and it costs money every time. If I could get somebody to sponsor Wes's travels to Denver, or just sponsor Wes to quit his day job and do this full time, that would be incredible. So if you're out there and you have a lot of money, I don't require a lot of money. Just send some my way, and then I'll get more content out for you.
I support that cause.
Or Wes could hustle. There we go. That's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's a hike. Well, I'm glad you're going to be there, Todd. And I thank you both very, very much for taking the time. And it's been great fun.
I love your stuff. I know Todd loves your stuff. And it was wonderful meeting you at the Valkyrie. And so I'm so glad you were able to take the time to sit down with us and talk about your work. That's awesome. Thank you.
Very welcome. I look forward to your magic behind the scenes.
All right.
Again, Confronting the Void, a solo exhibit of mixed media work by Jen Starling, opens Friday, December 3rd and runs through December 19th at Pirate Contemporary Art, located at 7130 West 16th Avenue here in Lakewood, Colorado. Check out Jen's work at our website at jenstarlingart.com and her Instagram at jenstarlingart. All pertinent information can be found in this week's episode notes. And for the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.